All right, welcome everyone to the College Admissions Collaborative highlighting engineering and technology virtual college fair. This is the University of Chicago information session. And before I pass it over to our lovely presenter, Liz, I'm going to kick us off with some housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to Liz at any time, and we highly encourage you to do so. She'll do her best to address those throughout the presentation. Your camera and microphone are off, so Liz cannot see or hear you, so that's why it's important to submit your questions through the Q&A. This is just one of a few more sessions that we have tonight, so if you're interested in listening to a few other institutions, feel free to sign up at the website you registered for this particular session. And this presentation is being recorded, and all of the recordings for the CACHET Virtual College Fair will be available on the website tomorrow. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Liz to get us started. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Jen, and good evening, everyone. I'm so excited to share a little bit about the University of Chicago with you. So my name's Lizschutz. I'm an admissions counselor here at the University of Chicago. That means that I read applications specifically for Oklahoma and Texas. So a lot of universities will have regional counselors who are experts at knowing the context of the high schools that you go to in specific states or territories or countries around the world. But I'm also the lead on our molecular engineering recruiting. So I know a lot of you are here at this CACHET event because you're interested to hear more about schools with engineering programs. So we'll certainly talk about UChicago's options later today. I'm also an alumna of the college, so my blood runs maroon, and I am super excited to share a little bit about my experiences, both from a former student side as well as from the staff side. Like Jen mentioned, please feel free to use that Q&A. I want this to be as productive as possible for you. So I will be answering your questions live throughout the session. So I look forward to hearing from you. With that, the University of Chicago, you've been looking at this picture for a couple of minutes now. When you take a first glance at it, it probably looks a lot different than your community. The architecture itself is probably a lot different than your high school. A lot of people think that the university is quite old when you see this Gothic architecture, but in the reality of things, it's really more of a middle-aged college in terms of American higher education. So we were founded in 1890 by John D. Rockefeller and our first president, William Rainey Harper. Rockefeller and Harper really wanted the University of Chicago to be unique. I think that is best shown in our motto, let knowledge grow from more to more, and so be human life enriched. I take that to mean that our founders wanted the University of Chicago to be a place where your education meant something. You were going to take your liberal arts education and use it to improve the world better than you left it. That's certainly true. We are a land of firsts. A couple of examples I always like to give here. We are the first school, the first American institution to grant a PhD to an African-American female. Her name was Georgiana Simpson. She received that honor in 1921 after studying Germanic studies here at the university. Then in 1935, we won the very first Heisman Trophy. That was won by our halfback, Jay Berwanger. And it's actually now on display in our Ratner Athletic Center. So if you ever get the chance to peek inside, either on a tour later down the line, or if you end up coming to the University of Chicago and stop by Ratner to work out and you get up really close, you'll see a bunch of kind of dings and nicks in the trophy. And the reason for that is it was the very first one. Jay Berwanger didn't know how prestigious it was. And so rumor has it, he actually took it back to his dorm room where it was used as a doorstop. So it got a little bit beat up over the years, but we are very glad to have since recovered it. And then the last first that I want to give you is we were the location of the first self-sustained nuclear chain reaction. That was achieved in 1942 by Enrico Fermi, who won a Nobel Prize for his efforts as part of the Manhattan Project. And that really set the kind of paved the way for molecular engineering as we know it in modern day UChicago history. Enrico Fermi is just one of our Nobel Prize winners. We have 92 now overall associated with the University of Chicago, and 7 of them are currently on our faculty, which is really cool to be able to come as an undergraduate student and get to learn from really some truly bright minds here. So while you may still be working towards getting a Nobel Prize of your own, I want to talk a little bit about what education looks like at the undergraduate level here. We are a liberal arts college nested within a larger research institution. So what are the liberal arts? They are not just the fine arts. The liberal arts also consist of math and physics and molecular engineering in this case. The idea behind the liberal arts is that word liberal, which comes from the Latin root liber. And if you think of some words you know, either in English or Romance languages, think about liberty, think about the word liberation. They all come back to this end theme of freedom and wanting to be free. So when we talk about the liberal arts, we're talking about a free-minded education. At liberal arts institutions like UChicago, your professors will not be telling you what to think. They do not want to stand at a podium and lecture at you. They want you to be able to formulate those opinions on your own. So the idea behind the liberal arts is that it is discussion-based. At UChicago, 85% of our classes are 25 students or fewer. All of our core classes, which we'll discuss in a moment, are 19 students or fewer. And I think that's a really sweet spot because 19 students, you still have enough diverse opinions in the classroom to keep the conversation moving with fresh perspectives, but it's not too many that your voice ever gets overshadowed. Along with that, we have a student to faculty ratio of 5:1. So that means that you are really going to have the opportunity to get to know your professors. They will know your name. They will, if they live in Hyde Park in our community, in our neighborhood, they may even invite you over for tea and scones as a class on the weekend. So there are a lot of opportunities to really get to know your professors and also your brilliant peers who you are working right alongside. So I mentioned the core curriculum very briefly. I want to dive a little bit more deeply into that. What does academic life look like at the University of Chicago? More or less, we can divide our academics into thirds. So a third of your classes will be part of the core. Another third will be your major classes, and your last third will be electives. So when it comes to the core, that's really the heart of our liberal arts curriculum here. If you hear about cores at other institutions, sometimes they might sound like they are a requirement. But if you are a true UChicago Maroon, or if you're like me and you truly love to learn, you will really see the core for what it is, and that's an opportunity to learn about 8 different disciplines, no matter what your major is. So at UChicago, we ask all of our students to study these 8 core disciplines, which are the humanities, the social sciences, biology, physics, and math. Then we have civilizations, a foreign language, and a fine art. Now that is just the very basic overarching framework, but within that you have a lot of flexibility. So for example, within the biology classes, there are more than 25 different biology classes that you can choose from. That was a surprise to me coming from a large public high school that only had 2 offerings. We only had bio or AP bio, and that's all you got. And biology was personally not my thing, so I took regular 9th grade bio, and I quite honestly saw it as being a little bit monolithic. I thought that in all biology classes, you learned how to diagram the parts of the cell, and you learned that the mitochondria generates ATP, which I really hope is right because I haven't taken much biology since 9th grade. But that was my view of what biology was. I didn't even fathom that there could possibly be upwards of 25 different tracks, 25 different classes I could take at UChicago to satisfy that requirement. I personally, when I was a student, took a class called Metabolism and Nutrition. Some of my peers took a class called The Public and Private Lives of Insects. So I don't know what the private life of an insect entails, but I heard that it's kind of like a real life sequel to the movie A Bug's Life. And then another example of a biology class we have is called Resolving the Environmental Crisis. In that class, students learn the biological basis for the argument of climate change, but then they also take a step back and look at the big picture. I think about how in 2020, if you were watching the presidential debates, there would often be entire 15-minute segments devoted to the subject of climate change. And so in this biology class, you very may well be referencing the debates. You may be looking at a public policy angle. You may be looking at the political science undertones there. And so for someone like me who ended up being a social sciences major, it was really nice that my core could be interdisciplinary. So the idea behind the core is not to teach you specific thematic knowledge. It's, again, really to give you that tool set as a liberal arts student to know how to critically read, write, and think for yourself. So for those reasons, some people like to think of the core as your intellectual toolbox. So that's a brief introduction for your first third of your academics. If you have any other questions about the core, I would love to answer them. So be sure to use that Q&A feature there. Another third of your classes will be towards your major. At the University of Chicago, we currently have 52 majors. Something that's a little bit unique and maybe different from some other institutions you might hear from later this evening. We only have one undergraduate college. So all 52 of our majors are housed under the college, the undergraduate college at the University of Chicago. What that means is that you can come in and you could say that you want to do one thing, and then you can completely switch gears and do another. There are some institutions where you might have to apply directly into the undergraduate school of engineering or the undergraduate school of journalism or the undergraduate school of business, and you might not be able to shift very easily between them. But at UChicago, we realize that our students love to learn. We don't want to pigeonhole you or lock you into anything. We want you to dip your toes in a little bit of everything. So when you come to UChicago, you may intend initially to major in biology. And then if you want to change 2 weeks later to music, you can do that. And another 2 weeks later, you can switch to creative writing. And another 2 weeks later, you can go back to biology. We are very flexible here. You actually don't need to declare your major until the end of your second year, going into your third year. So that's really nice for someone who is a little bit undecided like me to dip my toes in each of the 8 core curriculum subjects. I did those earlier on my first and second year, and then focusing on my major my next 2 years. We have some of our more popular programs listed on the screen there. We are certainly known for economics and the Chicago School of Economic Thought that was born out of here. I think of our 7 Nobel Prize winners, at least 6, if not all 7 of them who are currently on faculty are in the econ department. So they are a force to be reckoned with. But one of our newer majors that I do want to plug, especially in this CACHET sphere, is molecular engineering. We are the only school in the entire world to have a molecular engineering major for undergraduates. There are 2 other universities that do have a molecular engineering department. One of them is in Tokyo and one of them is in the Pacific Northwest. But unfortunately, those programs are exclusively for PhD students. So at the University of Chicago, we want to give you an entry point a little bit earlier, and we offer molecular engineering. And within that, we have 3 different tracks. If you want to major in, if you want to specialize in bioengineering, or you could specialize in the chemical and soft materials track. And the third one is in quantum. Quantum engineering is making a huge leap forward as we work towards a national quantum internet that will allow for unhackable communications. So we are very excited about all the great technological advances that we will be making If you are someone who likes to work with nanotechnology, but have a grand impact to solve some of the world's biggest problems, I highly recommend that you look into molecular engineering. So your major will typically take up about another third of your time. And then the last third will be your electives. Because again, we realize that UChicago students have a lot of diverse academic interests. We want you to be able to explore those. Sometimes students will use this extra space to take on a second major or to pursue a minor. You can certainly do that. Or if you just want to take classes that interest you. We have a class called Baseball in American Culture, where you think about how sport can be used as a lens with which to view the civil rights movement of the 1960s. We have a class called Dinosaur Science, where students actually go on a week-long archaeological dig in the Badlands in South Dakota and excavate real Stegosaurus skulls, which is so amazing to me. Or my personal favorite elective is probably Star Wars and religion. So in that class, students are required to watch at least 9 of the Star Wars franchise films and answer questions like, how does Obi-Wan Kenobi's journey resemble that of a prototypical saint? So very unique, a little bit different than electives that your high schools might more traditionally offer. So that's my very brief overview of academics. I'm going to turn to the Q&A now. Thank you for dropping some excellent questions there. Great. So we have a question here. Do students focus on the core during specific years? Do they spread it out throughout their 4 years? Absolutely. So the only requirement is that you take one of your core requirements your first year, and that's humanities. So humanities is your entry point. Usually humanities classes consist of reading a little bit older philosophical works by Hume or Descartes or Aristotle, Socrates, etc., and really learning how to interpret them yourselves and formulate your own opinion, apply it to modern day life. So really gives you the humanities gives you that foundation for what we expect you to be able to do at the college level in terms of critically reading and writing and formulating opinions. Beyond that, you can take the other core requirements, you can spread them out throughout your 4 years, but I will say typically students do front load them just because, again, it's a nice entry point to try a few different things. Maybe you're coming into college and you're trying to decide if you want to be a physics major or a social sciences major. And if you take both of those core requirements earlier on, maybe that will help define your major in the future. So wonderful question there. We have someone who's asking if you need to take a language all 4 years. No, so each of the core requirements, it typically is 2 or 3 quarters that you need to take. So UChicago is on a quarter system. So the foreign language component is just one of those aspects that you need to take. You can complete it your first year. You may even be able to test out of it if you have received an AP score of a 5 or an IB score of a 5, 6, or 7. We're able to automatically place you out of the language competency requirement if you so choose. And then it looks like we have one more student who was asking just for a repetition of what those core requirements were. So we have the humanities and the social sciences. And then we have biology, math, and physics. And then we have civilizations, fine art, and foreign language. Civilizations, I would explain as kind of a combination of history, but with a more anthropological lens. And the other thing I'll say with civilizations is that a lot of students will actually study abroad to fulfill that core requirement. So I'll make a quick plug here for study abroad. I highly encourage that you do it no matter where you go to college. These are some of the only 4 years where you will have the time and the opportunity to jet off to anywhere in the world. At UChicago, we have over 60 programs in 32 different cities around the world. If you are on financial aid, that money will follow you abroad. So we want it to be accessible. We also want students of all majors to be able to go abroad. So we offer a variety of programs like economics in Hong Kong, human rights in Vienna, Austria, or astrophysics in Paris, France. So no matter what your major is, there is an opportunity to go abroad, specialize within your major, or if you want to take some of those core requirements, the civilizations courses. If you're going to be taking Greek civilizations, essentially a Greek history class anyway, why not take it in Athens, where you can actually go and see the Parthenon that you were just reading about in your textbooks. So wonderful questions about academics. Thank you for participating there. Continue to drop those in the chat, and I will get to as many as possible. Next, I want to pivot and talk a little bit about opportunities outside of the classroom. So a lot of you coming to CACHET events may be interested in research of some form. And if you remember at the beginning of this presentation, I introduced the University of Chicago as a liberal arts school, but nested within a larger research institution. And to that end, it very much trickles down into the undergrad experience. Over 80% of our undergrads do some type of research before graduating. For those of you specifically interested in STEM, we do have partnerships with the Argonne and Fermi National Laboratories. Those are co-run by the University of Chicago and the US Department of Energy. So if you want to work with the fastest supercomputer in the United States, or if you are very interested in working with nanoparticle physics, those could be great resources for you. We operate with the Woods Hole Marine Biological Laboratory on the East Coast, for those of you interested in marine bio and really getting that hands-on experience. But even for students who are not sure if they want to work in the white lab coats with the pipettes and the beakers, I want to encourage you to think about research beyond that realm. So thinking about how research does exist in the humanities, it does exist in the social sciences. On campus, we have over 160 research institutes overall. We have the Oriental Institute, one of the museums on campus. For those of you who might be interested in archival research, looking at some of the very first ancient texts known to mankind that came out of Mesopotamia, we have those right on our campus. We are home to the Institute of Politics, run by David Axelrod and his team. David Axelrod was the chief political strategist and advisor for Barack Obama's campaign and presidency, and he now works on our campus to bring political fellows, former governors, congresspeople, heads of state, UN ambassadors, etc. And our undergraduates get to do research with these pretty big names, which is very exciting. So a lot of times these research opportunities do take place throughout the academic year. For about 10 to 20 hours a week, we try to make them paid positions as often as we can. And you can get started as early as your first year. It's as simple as just reaching out to a professor who does work that interests you. But maybe if you want to pursue research a little bit more intensively, the summer quarter would be a perfect opportunity to do that. Over the summer, a lot of our students will also participate in internships. The University of Chicago has a robust internship program called Metcalf internships. These are over 3,000 internships available exclusively to UChicago students each year. So we have some of the companies that we work with up there on the screen. We have students who intern at the big names like Google and Microsoft, Uber, Facebook, Vogue, Bank of America. But then we also have students who intern a little bit more locally at the Art Institute of Chicago, at the City of Chicago Mayor's office. Again, similar to study abroad with internships and with research, no matter what your field of study or your major is, there is an opportunity for you to pursue that outside of the classroom. So that's just a little bit about our career advancement between the internships, between these careers in programs that we have, which are essentially like focused tracks that give you specialized access to seminars and research and internship opportunities, and and mock interviews, those types of things. And with all of this combined, we are very proud to report that we have a 96% job placement rate. So 96% of our graduating class, as they receive their diploma, they already know what their next steps are. So we will take care of you here at UChicago. All right. Let's go ahead and pivot a little bit to talking about student life. Before we start, I do want to answer a question that came in the chat because we've been talking a little bit about the quarter systems and what that looks like. The University of Chicago is fairly rare in that we aren't on the semester calendar. So the quarter calendar is a little bit shifted. We don't start class until late September, sometimes even the first day or two of October is when our first day of class is. And then we go until early to mid-June. That time is split into 3 required academic quarters: fall, winter, and spring. During each of those quarters, you will take minimum 3 and maximum 4 classes. So it's a lot different than what you might be used to at your high school, where you're taking double that amount. A quarter system is a little bit different because they are faster paced. Quarters are only 10 weeks long. But because they are faster paced, you only have to take 3 or 4 classes at a time. And then summer quarter is completely optional. I'll be honest, a vast majority of students do not take classes over the summer. That's when they'll get involved in these research and internship opportunities. So great question there. Wonderful. So let's transition to talk a little bit about life outside of the classroom. I would say a cornerstone of UChicago student life is certainly housing. So I want to start there. Typically, we do ask students to live on campus their first and second year. So we do have that residential on-campus requirement because it's such a core component of our UChicago identity. Of course, this year looks a little bit different because of the pandemic, but our president recently announced that this fall, for autumn 2021, we will be able to go back to in-person in full force. So hopefully we will have all of our students back on campus with us. And what that looks like is that we have 7 dorms that are split into 48 smaller houses. Houses are essentially tight-knit communities, anywhere from 60 up to 100 students. So you can think about it, if you have a dorm that is maybe 3 stories tall, the first floor might be Tufts House, the second floor is Henderson House, and the third floor is Midway House. And each of those houses, again, is made up of 60 to 100 students. They are all very diverse. They represent a microcosm of the university. So we don't split you up based on your major or your year or where you come from. We want you to learn a lot by living within a diverse group of people. But each house is a little bit unique in the sense that it adopts its own personality and its own traditions. Some houses will be very passionate about intramural sports. Other houses will have wacky traditions to celebrate the first day of the quarter, or to celebrate all house members' birthdays. One of my favorite house traditions is called awkward date night, which is exactly what it sounds like. You're forced to make a blind date with someone in your house as awkward as you possibly can. So we want you to have fun. We want you to make friends with people who maybe don't study the same things that you do, who you otherwise wouldn't have a chance to meet on campus. So we hope that will be kind of your first sense of community. Then we hope that you will also make friends through your classes. But then finally, we also want you to pursue some of those extracurricular interests as well. We have over 450 clubs on campus. We call them registered student organizations. Some of our larger ones tend to be Model United Nations or University Theater. So our theater puts on more than 30 student-produced and student-directed plays every single year, which is very impressive. But then we also have smaller, more niche clubs. One of them that you see on the screen there is the Zombie Readiness Task Force. So they do a couple of things, one of which is they host a quarterly humans versus zombies game with Nerf guns, which is pretty fun to watch people run across campus, run across the quad, trying to evade the zombies. And then they go around to each building on campus and give it a letter grade from A to F of how secure that building would be should a zombie apocalypse occur. So that's just a silly way for you to get involved, but also to meet like-minded people who, again, maybe you wouldn't necessarily know through your classes. That's a little bit about on-campus student life. I also have to mention that we are in the beautiful city of Chicago. Chicago is a little bit unique in that it is very defined by its neighborhoods. So more so than other cities that I have lived in or traveled to in the past. Chicago's 77 different neighborhoods are very distinct and have a personality of their own as well. We specifically are located in Hyde Park, which is just a couple miles outside of downtown. You have everything that you could possibly need here in Hyde Park. You have your Whole Foods, your Trader Joe's, your Target, your CVS, a bunch of great local bookstores and local restaurants to support as well. But when you want the resources and the access to the greater city, it's just a couple miles away. You can hop on a bus, which you can take for free. All of our students get free, unlimited public transportation around the city of Chicago. So we want you to go out there and explore. We also want you to use your student ID as a free pass into more than 70 museums around the city. So I know I already mentioned the Art Institute, one of my personal favorites, but we have the Museum of Science and Industry. We have the Field Museum, the Adler Planetarium. Those are just some of the places that our students can go at no cost. They get there for free on the bus, and then admission is free as a University of Chicago student as well. Wonderful. So I'm going to go back to the chat and see if, or to the Q&A, excuse me, and see if there's any questions we can answer about student life or academics that we may have skipped over. And then the next 10 minutes or so, I'll focus on the application process because I see quite a few questions about that as well. Wonderful. I really like this question about how would I describe the social environment at UChicago? I think UChicago, it's unique in that our students are intellectual 24/7. When I was a student, I remember some of my favorite conversations happening at 2 in the morning in the dorm room. And my friends and I would be in the lounge and we'd be discussing, like, would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 50 duck-sized horses? And we would analyze that for like 45 minutes late on a Saturday night. And we would be talking about, okay, well, what breed of horse are we fighting? Or like, what weapons do we have? Are we trapped in a room with them? Or are we battling these 50 duck-sized horses like out on a field, out on a pasture? Like we got so into it and we very much analyzed it tooth and nail. We really went through it with a comb. So you have that type of UChicago student culture. But you also have students who are very passionate about what they do outside of academics, which I think is important. The other thing I'll say about our student culture, which was a huge shift for me from my high school experience, and this was a shift in the right direction, is that it's very collaborative here. So I don't know about you all, but I know in my high school, we were hyper competitive. We knew our GPAs to the 1000th place. We were checking in weekly to see if our class rank updated, things like that, which is not necessarily healthy, and it's much more focused on the outcome rather than the process of learning. And I think UChicago really embraces that, right? Your peers will probably not be talking about their grades because they are much more invested in the content itself, which again was a very welcome change for me. So excellent questions. Thank you all for participating. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the application portion of the presentation because, again, we have quite a few questions coming in there. So the first thing to know is that we accept a variety of applications, specifically the Common app, the Coalition app, or the QuestBridge application. So you only need to complete one of those, whichever one is most familiar to you and that you qualify for. When you complete your application, you will give us your demographic information. You will submit a personal statement. That will all go to the same schools that you apply to with the application. On your Common, Coalition, or QuestBridge app, you will also be asked to include a counselor's email address, counselor's name and email address. That will then trigger the counselor to upload a transcript for you and to provide a letter of recommendation if they so choose. So when it comes to the transcript, as I mentioned, we have regional admissions counselors. So I am very familiar with the grading systems and scales in Texas and Oklahoma. But if you are a little bit worried that your school does something different or maybe has a unique GPA, or sometimes we even get students who don't have GPAs or don't have grades, that is okay. I can guarantee you that your regional admissions counselor will be familiar with how to read your transcript. A lot of times I get asked, what is your average incoming freshman GPA? And to be honest, that's not even a statistic we calculate. And the reason is because of this diversity of schools that we work with. In Texas alone, I have some schools that are on the 6.0 scale, the 4.0 GPA scale, the 100.0 scale. I've actually heard there's a school in New York that legitimately puts smiley faces and frowny faces on the transcript. I can't confirm or deny that, but the point being, there's no way to standardize this into a flat GPA that we require. And I think it's a lot more than that. It's about context. So as your regional admissions counselor, I want to see, what are you taking advantage of? If your high school has AP, IB, dual enrollment, honors, etc., we're probably going to want to see that you take advantage of some of those within reason. I'm not saying you have to go sign up for 7 AP classes your senior year. But on the other side of that coin, if your school doesn't have as many honors or advanced curriculum options, we would never penalize you for that. So when it comes to your transcript, it's all about what was available to you, did you take advantage of it, and how did you fare in the end? In your Common or Coalition or QuestBridge application, you will also put some teacher contact info. We ask for 2 teacher recommendations from core subject teachers. So these could be history, English, math, science, etc. Just to tell us how you operate in the classroom, how you critically read, write, and think. If you want to provide a supplemental letter, we are happy to accept one of those. That could be from a sports coach or from a club advisor. Maybe you're very involved in your church and you want to ask a spiritual leader. We are always happy to accept more if you feel that it will put your best foot forward. Then we will also consider test scores, again, if you think that will put your best foot forward. So I saw we had a question in the Q&A about, will we be test optional next year? Yes, UChicago has actually been test optional since before the pandemic. We started that initiative in 2018, and we will continue to be so for the foreseeable future. You are truly not penalized in any way if you do not provide testing. We feel that there are so many other places in the application that we can make an informed decision. But if you do have the opportunity to take a test safely in the next 6 months, year, depending if you're a junior or a sophomore, I say it doesn't hurt to take the test once, get it under your belt, and then after that, you can decide if you want to send your scores in or not. At UChicago, we accept self-reported test scores, so you never need to pay to send them. You can just take a screenshot, and that is more than sufficient for us. Now, my favorite part of the application is the essays. So at UChicago, we read your personal statement, but then we also have our supplemental essays. Now, whenever a university has a supplement, I want that to be a flashing red light at you to show you that we are asking for something else. We know that your senior year is incredibly busy. We are not just trying to put more work on you. we are very intentional with our supplemental essay prompts and what we are trying to tease out of you. So we ask one question, which is, why do you want to come to the University of Chicago? Pretty point blank, but you want to show that you've done your research. In the city of Chicago alone, there are 44 different institutions where you can get a 4-year bachelor's degree. So if you start this essay by saying, Miss Liz, I want to come to the University of Chicago because it's in a big city by a lake and has a great physics program, guess what? All of those other 43 schools, they're in a big city, they're by a beautiful lake, and I'm pretty sure most of them have physics programs. So you want to be a little bit more specific than that in your essay and show us why you think you need the University of Chicago community and campus to thrive, and also what you could contribute and bring to the school as well. So that's our first supplemental essay question. The second supplemental essay question, you can choose from any of our various prompts, or you can create your own. So this is where we want you to get creative. In the past, we've had prompts such as, where's Waldo? Or find X. What's so odd about odd numbers? This year, my personal favorite was, how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could really chuck wood? These are meant to be fun. The more fun you have writing it, the more fun I will have reading it. This is a great way for us to see how you critically think. And the reason we ask these is because, remember, when I introduced the liberal arts, I said that your professors will not be lecturing at you. They want to hear your own thoughts. They want you to be the driver of discussion and to come up with your own opinions. And so by asking these unique and kind of silly questions, it's basically a litmus test for us to see, how do you respond to the unknown? Do you embrace the unknown? So I say, have fun with it. You can be analytical, you can be funny. If you're not funny, now is not the time to try. So that's my recommendation with the essays. And those are the main parts of the application that we look at from a holistic viewpoint. But again, because we want to understand who you are as a whole person, if there's ever an additional letter or a video or an art piece or a research paper that you want us to take a look at, we're more than happy to accept those. All right, we have a couple of different application deadlines and plans. I recommend, if you can, that you apply early just because of that notification timeline. If you apply by November 2nd, we get back to you by mid-December, and that's just a nice weight to have off your shoulders going into the new year. Finally, I want to end on financial aid. We understand that you can learn all you want about UChicago, but at the end of the day, it does need to be financially affordable for your family. To that end, we guarantee to meet 100% of demonstrated need for all students, domestic and international. We have a couple of different benchmarks on the screen. So if your family makes less than $60,000 per year, we essentially guarantee a full ride. And if your family makes less than $125,000 per year, we guarantee a minimum of free tuition. If your family makes more than that, it doesn't mean that you're not receiving anything, but it just means that it's on a sliding scale. Again, that is for domestic students, that is for international students. We don't have any in-state tuition because we are a private institution. And also all students are automatically considered for merit-based scholarships as well. Okay, so with that, I know I'm coming up on my time. I encourage you to reach out and learn more about the University of Chicago virtually. Every single day we are offering virtual events. We have other information sessions with admissions counselors. We have sessions specific to financial aid, housing, study abroad, etc. I also encourage you to get in touch with our current students. They are way more interesting to listen to than I am. If you want to join one of these student salons, those are going to be small Zoom meetings where you can actually have your camera on and talk one-on-one personally with UChicago students and other interested high school students. We have virtual campus tours and hope to be able to welcome you back to campus for in-person tours later this year. And then I'll just mention the model class that's happening this Saturday, Entering the Mad World. So for those of you interested in video game design, that should be a really interesting one. With that, I will go ahead and drop my email in the chat. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Otherwise, thank you so much, Jen and StriveScan, for hosting.
And thank you so much, Liz. That was fantastic. I hope everyone learned a lot of cool things. So I want to thank you for joining us in this virtual college fair, and specifically the University of Chicago. And as you exit the Zoom webinar, you will be taken to a quick survey. It's only 4 questions, so we'd love to hear your feedback regarding this particular session. And sign up for more sessions. We have a few more coming up in the next couple of hours. So if you're interested in continuing to learn about other institutions across the nation, and then recordings will be available on the website tomorrow for on-demand viewing later. So thank you so much for being here, and I hope everyone has a great evening. Take care.